In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to customize 2D shader scopes using console commands. To open up a console command, just press the button under the escape key. Here, type scope and you're going to see all these parameters down here that can be customized. Use arrow keys to select which one you want, press enter. This parameter here, called scope blur outer, is, as the name says, it's responsible for the blur outside the scope. This here displays the current number that is in use for this parameter. And the numbers to the right are the minimum and the maximum values that you can use for this parameter. So 0 means the blur is disabled and 1 is for maximum blur. Now I'm going to change this number to 0 and that's going to disable the blur outside the scope. So I'm going to show you how it looks like. Just type 0 and press enter. Now zoom in and you're going to notice that it's not blurry outside the scope. You can change it to 1 and you're going to see a lot of blur outside the scope. Now let's type scope again and this time I'm going to choose brightness. I'm going to set it to 0. That's going to set it to really dark. You don't see anything outside the scope. If you set it to 1, then it's much brighter. You can use any value you want between minimum and maximum. Now let's choose the next option, factor. This parameter here affects the zoom inside the scope. Right now it is set to 0.75. Oops. You can set it to 1, which effectively removes the zoom inside the scope. When you aim, you can notice that there is no difference on the zoom inside and outside the scope. Let's say I change it to 0.2, like this, then the inside of the scope zooms a lot. You notice that it makes the image look pixelated. I like to use 0.75. This still keeps the image quality good, while it still feels like an actual scope. If you don't like it, if the image looks pixelated, you can disable it by using the number 1 value. It's going to completely remove the zoom from the inside of the scope. Let's see what next. We have a fog radius. It's 1.4. Let's change it to 0. There. Now that we zoom, there's no fog inside the scope. Let's increase it to something like 1. No. Let's choose number 2. There. Now we have much more fog inside the scope. Let's go back to 1.4. What else do we have? Let's see the fog sway aim. I'm gonna change this to number 1. This affects how fast the fog is gonna adapt to any changes in the movement. So the higher the number, the slower it reacts to the movement. If we set it to really low, then there is no movement whatsoever. This last option here, scope radius, this is only for modders to see what numbers they have to use for a specific scope. So you can experiment. It works like this. Let's say you have a different scope texture, some are bigger, some are smaller, so you can change the numbers here and see what exact number do you have to use for this specific scope texture. Just ignore it, you don't have to use it. As I said, this is only for the modders to get the appropriate number. That's about it. You get the general idea how this works. You can experiment, tweak the scopes to your liking. And that's it. I didn't cover all the parameters. Like I said, you get the idea how it works. Just choose the minimum and maximum values and experiment. That's it for today. See you on the next tutorial.